Thanks, Bill. Before I get started, I just want to put a spotlight on Tim Johnson, my co-author of the Project Step-by-Step book series. I've made mention of Tim many times, usually in the context of I'm doing something and I'd say, I wish Tim were here to double check my progress, because I'm not sure I did that right. But this is indeed the elusive Tim Johnson.
And I'll be leaving soon anyway.
And yes, and he's about to leave. So here we go. The focus of my talk is using a model called the Project Triangle, which probably many of us are familiar with, specifically, though, to focus in on critical measures of performance. And I'm going to talk about why I picked this approach when Bill first talked to me about really focusing on reporting of project status and why I came to this model. So here's what I have in mind for this evening. We're going to talk about the Project Triangle model. I think it's unfairly maligned by a lot of project managers, and I have some strategies that can make it a useful conceptual model for you. And then specifically, we're going to break that down into time, cost, and scope-related performance issues, and then move on to the specific Microsoft project features that support understanding and reporting status or progress related to time, to cost, and to scope. And then I'll be doing some hands-on activities, some of which are from the project step-by-step, and others are more spontaneous. And also, for anyone who is not running Project 2013, when we get to the portion of our explorations where we're looking at reports, as you may know, the reports feature was completely redesigned and reimagined in Project 2013, probably the major feature on the desktop upgrade in Project 2013. So I don't have the prior versions and the older style reports, but for anyone who does have that, if you find the most relevant reports for the subject we're looking at, you can share that with us as well. As always, this is very, very informal. I welcome clarifying questions along the way. I will try to repeat them because I know the audio in this space is not great. And we'll just jump right into it. So this is a representation that Tim and I developed back when we were working on the Project 2000 step-by-step. And it was one of the first things that I came across where, as a technical writer, as someone who thinks about how to explain complex things, I really liked this model. And I'll walk through what I like about it here. Now, this is often called the triangle of triple constraints. Sometimes it's not drawn quite this way. Things are not labeled quite this way. Sometimes it has additional attributes added to it. Sometimes it's a square, a hexagon, a pentagon, a variety of designs. But I'm going to explain why I like this more simple model specifically. Now, I have found this model to be a really useful way of explaining some important aspects of project management to people who don't have deep domain knowledge, and also, of course, those supporting features of project. And so I have found it to be a good mental model to use. Now, the key question I think we have is, in our work with Microsoft Project, can we account for time? And let me qualify that question. When I say account for, I mean truly in the accounting sense. Can we quantify time? Can we model issues related to time? Can we play what-if analysis? And so on. And I hope you would agree with me that most certainly, yes, we can. That is primarily what many of us do with project. So I think we've got that aspect of the project triangle covered pretty well. Can we account for cost in project? Some aspects of cost. So this is where I always have to do that hand-waving distinction of, there's the project out in the real world, and then there's our Microsoft project model of that thing out in the real world. And as is the case with all models, that MPP file, or that project plan that we build in Microsoft Project, is a simplification of the real world thing. So there are probably many aspects of the real project cost that we can't really directly model and manage in Microsoft Project. So some examples would include, you have major acquisitions that occur in the real world project. And there's not a lot you might do with that information inside of Microsoft project. You might record it in certain fashion so it's captured for posterity, but it's not something unlike, say, work resource cost modeling, where you can do a lot of hands-on work. And then finally, scope. So this is the slippery side of the project triangle. Can we account for scope in project? So first, let me ask you, what does scope mean in this context? What is scope? This is where the project triangle often falls down for people. Fantastic answer. So what's your name? So Jonathan is saying scope is the work performed. And I think, yeah, that's a great way of framing it. So, traditionally in project management, we talk about scope of work and scope of deliverable. Okay? And they're two closely related but distinct aspects of a project, both of the real world project and of what I might model in a tool like Microsoft Project. Now, scope of deliverables might be described in documents that are called things like specifications, blueprints, engineering drawings, and so on. Usually, they're very focused on physical descriptions or capabilities of the end result or the deliverable of the project. Usually extremely precise, especially if that end result is a physical thing like an airplane or a bridge. Right? In fact, there'd be a substantial library of such descriptions of that end result. Now, related to that, of course, is, well, what is the scope of work required to produce that desired end result? And that's mainly the thing that we are interested in this context. Now, what's missing from this model? What's the most common complaint people hear when they're presented with the project triangle model? Well, resources. So how does that play through with regard to Microsoft Project? Resource cost. So typically the thing we're focused on with regard to resources, we're interested in a few different attributes. In this context, we might be interested in their capability, their availability. We probably would be interested in their, I think you said quality, which we could equate to capability. But the thing that we model and keep an eye on are costs derived from work resources who are assigned to tasks, and then some other cost-related features like material resources and some other things that we will look at tonight. So resources isn't called out directly, and so that's the substitution we make. Okay, when we're talking about Microsoft Project, the things that we model there may have costs associated with them, and most of those costs are derived from assigning work resources to tasks to generate work and project. And then project does the math to calculate associated costs based on resource pay rates, the durations of those assignments, and other factors. What are the things would you say might be missing from this model? Risk. That's a great example. What's your name? Aaron? Yeah. Eric, thank you. So Eric said risk. Absolutely true. In fact, for those of us who are coming at a subject like this from a more traditional project management background, we could actually walk down the PMBOK knowledge areas, many of which have no representation here at all, and indeed many of which have no direct correlation with a set of features in Microsoft Project. Risk management is a great example. A lot of communication management. We're actually going to talk about many features and functions tonight that you might apply as part of your project manager or communications management tasks. But you're not going to find, a really distinct set of features in project that are as tightly correlated around risk management, communication management, procurement, lots of other PMBOK knowledge areas. The one that is, of course, a good fit is schedule management. Any other thoughts on what might be missing from this sort of representation? Yes. Quality. So this is actually the most common omission that I hear about. And sometimes you'll see quality actually drawn, right in the middle of the triangle, right? And that's a fair question because we're all focused on quality. We all care about quality. But quality doesn't get top billing in this model, and why is that? And here's my answer to that, and you could extend this answer to many of those other areas of project management that we don't directly affect in project. I think you would agree with me or at least by the end of my session, you will agree with me. We can very precisely quantify and model time aspects of a project, cost aspects of a project, and the scope of work aspects of a project. We cannot directly quantify and model quality aspects of a project. In fact, the two terms are sort of at odds, quantify quality. Now, we can describe quality. Typically, though, we do that in the context of what are those attributes of the deliverable of the project. And this gets back to that whole notion of specifications, engineering drawings, blueprints, and so on. So the capabilities of that deliverable described probably in exhausting detail. And that's why I like this model, because it enforces a simplicity. These are the things that as a project manager, I can directly affect in a project plan, which remember is a model of a real world project going on. And I have some dials, some metaphorical dials in Microsoft Project that I can turn up or down to affect time and cost and scope of work. Now, as I do so, without a doubt, I am affecting the overall quality of the deliverable of my project. And that's important for us as project managers to understand those relationships, and we'll look at how they might relate. But that's, as I said, primarily why I like this model, because it forces a simplicity on this. These are those things I can go directly affect in a model of my real world project that I have built and managed inside of a tool like Microsoft Project.